Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The men's voices filled the cramped room, bouncing off the steel walls. Maps rustled. Markers screeched across whiteboards. The smell of burnt coffee lingered, heavy and bitter. Yet no one met her eyes. She sat still, hands folded on the folder in front of her, waiting for someone to ask, waiting for the moment her silence wouldn't feel like a weight strapped to her chest. It didn't come. "Target building here," the commander tapped the map. His finger left a smudge of ink. "Extraction route marked red, standard in and out, fast." Standard, fast, clean. She almost laughed. Nothing in her life had ever been clean. The others leaned in, nodding. One of them cracked a nervous joke. Laughter flickered across the room like static. She stayed still, her gaze on the window where sunlight bled through dust-specked glass. She thought of sand, heat, the distant thump of rotor blades, things that had once meant hope, things that had turned into noise she couldn't escape. Her silence had become habit, safer than speaking, safer than watching their faces twist with doubt, with judgment, because she had seen it before. The last time she raised her voice, she lost more than just trust. "Questions?" the commander asked. No one answered. Her throat tightened, words pressing against it, begging to escape. She could see the flaw in the plan, the blind corner no one had marked, the timing that didn't line up. But she said nothing. Not yet. Not when her voice would only echo into dismissal. The meeting ended with chairs scraping, boots scuffing the floor, papers gathered, radios clipped to vests, men talking in low tones, the sound of camaraderie and belonging. She lingered, slow in her movements, packing her notes as if each page carried weight. One soldier glanced at her, just a flicker, then away. His silence was different, not dismissal, hesitation, maybe even guilt. She left the room without a word. Outside, the sun struck hard, white and merciless. Heat shimmered on the asphalt, blurring the world at its edges. The base buzzed with activity, trucks grinding, choppers whining, voices shouting orders. She moved through it like a shadow, helmet under her arm, her own breath louder than the chaos. She thought of her father. His voice years ago at the kitchen table. "Sometimes silence is strength, sometimes it's survival, but don't let it become your cage." She hadn't understood then. Now she did, and yet she was still in it. Her bunk was neat, almost untouched. A single photo taped above the bed, a girl with wind-tangled hair laughing at something outside the frame. Her sister, younger by 2 years, gone before 20. She touched the corner of the photo, tracing the smile with a fingertip. She didn't cry anymore. The grief had hardened, compacted into something solid, something sharp she carried inside. It wasn't tears that haunted her now. It was the silence she had kept about what really happened that night. The knock on her door startled her. "Briefing addendum," a voice said. A corporal, young, awkward, holding a folded paper. He didn't meet her eyes either. He left as quickly as he came. She unfolded it. A new line of coordinates, adjustments to timing, and a note written hastily in the margin: "Need your input. Meet me at hangar 1800. Her pulse quickened. Someone wanted her voice. For a moment she just stared at the words. Suspicion gnawed. It could be routine, it could be nothing. But it felt different, like a crack in the wall of silence. At 1800 the hangar smelled of oil and metal. Engines hummed low, mechanics shouting over the noise. She spotted him, the soldier who had glanced at her earlier. His name was Davis. She knew his record: competent, steady, not prone to mistakes. He motioned her over, voice low. "You saw it, didn't you? The gap in the plan." Her throat caught, she nodded. "They won't listen to me either," he said. His eyes flicked around, wary. "But I think they'd listen to you if you spoke up." She almost laughed at the irony. "They never do." Davis hesitated. "Maybe not before, but this, it matters. Lives, my life, yours." She looked at him, really looked. Saw the sweat on his temples, the lines of exhaustion. He wasn't just trying to win an argument. He was afraid, and he was trusting her. Her silence felt heavier than ever. She could tell him everything about the flaw, about what she saw coming, or she could stay quiet, carry the weight alone. Her mind flashed to her sister again, the night she died, the silence she had kept, the guilt that had gnawed at her since. This time she couldn't. "There's a blind alley," she said finally, her voice raw from disuse. "The timing doesn't work. If we follow the plan, we're trapped." Davis exhaled like he had been holding his breath. Relief and fear mingled in his face. "Then we change it." Her words hung in the air, fragile and powerful all at once. She felt exposed, like the hangar lights had stripped her bare, but also lighter. It was the smallest step, a whisper breaking through years of silence. And she didn't know it yet, but it was the first shift in a story that would test every part of her, her loyalty, her grief, her strength, her voice. For now, she turned and walked back into the blinding sun, her shadow stretching long behind her. But there was something she hadn't told him, not yet. Why did her heart pound harder when the engine started? The convoy lined up under the fatting sun, armored vehicles growling like restless animals. Dust rose in lazy spirals, catching the orange light. Soldiers moved with practiced precision, helmets clipped, rifles slung, their chatter a low murmur of routine. She checked her gear in silence, hands steady even as her pulse surged. Every strap, every buckle, every magazine was a ritual. Rituals kept fear at bay, or at least that's what she told herself. The commander's voice cut through the noise. Orders, assignments, timelines. His tone was sharp, unyielding. She listened, nodding the gaps again, the flaws hidden beneath confidence. Davis stood a few feet away, helmet tucked under his arm, glancing at her once. The look wasn't long, but it was enough. An anchor, a reminder that her silence wasn't just hers anymore. But still, she said nothing. Her boots sank into the dust as she climbed into the vehicle. Inside, the air smelled of oil and metal, close and suffocating. Seats creaked under armored weight. Someone muttered a joke to break the tension. Laughter rippled, but shallow, nervous. She kept her gaze on the narrow window slit. Outside, the last light slipped away, leaving only shadows and headlights carving through the dark. And with darkness came memory. She was back in her childhood bedroom the night her sister slipped out the window. She had heard the creak, seen the flash of sneakers on the roof. She had opened her mouth to call out, to stop her, to say something, anything. But she didn't. Silence. Hours later, the phone rang. The kind of call that breaks a family in half. Her sister, gone in a wreck on a lonely stretch of highway, too fast, too young. She had never told her parents she could have stopped it, that she could have spoken. The shame of that silence had followed her, year after year, heavier than body armor, sharper than shrapnel. And now here she was, again, silent in the face of danger. The vehicle jolted over uneven ground, snapping her back. Around her, soldiers adjusted straps, shifted weapons, whispered fragments of fears they wouldn't admit out loud. "Think we'll be back before sunrise. Depends if intel's wrong again." "Don't say that, man." The words floated like smoke, vanishing before they settled. Each man carried his own ghosts. She could see it in their eyes, the ones who stared too long at nothing, the ones who gripped their rifles too tight. Her silence wasn't unique. It was just louder inside her head. The convoy stopped. Engines idled low. Doors opened with metallic thuds. Night air rushed in, cool and sharp. She stepped out, boots crunching gravel. The world was hushed now, a blanket of stars above, the moon a pale scar on the sky. They moved in formation, shadows flowing through darker shadows. Every sound mattered, the click of a safety, the crunch of dirt, the distant bark of a stray dog. Her rifle pressed against her shoulder, familiar, heavy. The weight steadied her. At the edge of a ruined wall, they paused. The target building loomed ahead, windows dark, silent as a tomb. It should have looked ordinary. It didn't, not to her. Her gut twisted. Something was wrong, timing, shadows, the way the street seemed too empty. She wanted to speak, to whisper a warning, but the old fear held her tongue. What if she was wrong? What if they dismissed her again? What if her words cost them time they didn't have? The commander's hand went up, signaling advance. She clenched her jaw. One step, two, boots scraping stone, breath catching in the back of her throat. Then movement, a flicker in the corner of her eye, a curtain shifting where no wind blew. She froze. Her silence roared in her ears. This was the moment, the choice, speak or let it swallow her again. Her voice broke out, harsh and sharp. Contact, window left side. The squad dropped instantly, instincts snapping to life. Rifles trained, silence fractured by the sound of safeties clicking off. For a heartbeat, nothing, no movement, no sound. Then the crack of a rifle split the night. Glass shattered, sparks danced off stone. Her call had saved them. The commander glanced back, eyes hard, calculating. For the first time, he didn't look through her. He looked at her. But she wasn't relieved. Not yet. Because in the shadows beyond the broken window, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A flash of fabric, familiar, out of place, wrong. Her stomach dropped. She knew that color, that pattern, not enemy, not local, something else. And suddenly, the silence inside her wasn't about shame anymore. It was about a secret she had carried too long. A secret tied not just to this mission, but to the night her sister died. She didn't breathe, didn't move. Because if she was right, if what she saw was real, then everything about this mission was already compromised. And it was her fault. What had she just seen? Her breath caught, pulse hammering against the inside of her skull. The firefight had erupted fast, rounds cracking past, ricochets screaming against stone. Her squad pressed tight against the wall, shadows flickering with muzzle flashes. Shouts, commands, boots scraping, shoulders slamming into cover. But she couldn't stop staring at that broken window, at the scrap of cloth vanishing back into the dark. The others returned fire, their rifles answering the hidden threats in bursts of thunder. She forced her hands steady, sighting down her barrel, squeezing controlled shots. Training took over. Muscle memory steadied her body, even as her mind spiraled. That fabric, that pattern. It wasn't standard enemy garb, not local militia either. It was stitched differently, cleaner, too new. And the colors, she had seen them once before, in a photograph. One she kept hidden, folded deep in her duffel where no one else could find it. Her sister's jacket. Not the exact one. Couldn't be. Her sister had been buried with nothing but silence and sorrow. But the pattern, the cut, it was from the same group. The same reckless crowd her sister had followed into the night she never came back. A group her commanders never spoke about. Her throat went dry. "Cover right, move up," the commander barked. She blinked hard, dragging herself back into the moment. Davis tapped her shoulder, motioning. They sprinted low across open ground, boots pounding gravel, bullets snapping the air. Her lungs burned, legs surging on instinct. They slid into cover behind a crumbling wall. Dust rained down, stinging eyes and throat. Someone cursed, wiping grit from their mouth. Her hands reloaded fast, practiced. Click, slam, rack. But her thoughts wouldn't steady. What were they doing here? The group her sister once trusted, the same group she blamed herself for ignoring. Was the mission even what they said it was? She swallowed hard, scanning the rooftop lines, the empty windows like hollow eyes. The silence between bursts of fire was worse than the shooting, tense, stretched, filled with the weight of questions she couldn't ask. Not here, not now. But soon. On my mark, the commander growled, crouching low, hand raised. The squad tensed, boots dug in, fingers tightened on triggers. She forced her focus forward. The mark came. They surged as one, shoving through the broken entryway, darkness swallowing them whole. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and something metallic. The sharp tang of blood already hung there. Light beams from their rifles sliced the dark, illuminating rubble, overturned furniture, shards of glass glinting like teeth. A body slumped against a wall. Enemy, young, wide-eyed even in death. Blood seeped across cracked tiles, reflecting light in sick patterns. The squad moved methodically, clearing room by room. Voices low clipped. Clear, clear, next. She followed, weapon steady, heart unsteady. Then a whisper not from her comms, real human. Her head snapped left, a door half open, a shadow moving inside. She raised her fist, signaling halt. The squad froze, weapons pivoting toward her sightline. She nudged the door open with her boot. Inside, the figure crouched low, trembling, not a fighter, a boy, maybe 14. His hands clutched fabric ragged, dirt-stained, patterned with that same color scheme. Her chest constricted. The boy's eyes widened at the lights, the rifles aimed at him. He pressed back against the wall, muttering words in a language she didn't fully know, but the fear was universal. "Stand down," she whispered, her voice cracked thin. The commander shoved past, rifle trained. "Target." "No," she snapped, louder than she meant. Her body angled between them before she thought. "He's just a kid." The commander's eyes cut sharp at her, cold, measuring, but after a tense beat he lowered his weapon slightly. "Secure him, move." Davis stepped in, tying the boy's hands gently, speaking softer than the others would. The boy's eyes darted to her, lingered. He whispered something, fast, urgent. She leaned closer. His words were fractured, but one cut through clear. Her sister's name. Her blood ran cold. She staggered back, the walls tilting. The room closed in, dark and suffocating. Her sister's name, from a boy in a war zone she'd never been to. Impossible, unreal, but his eyes, wild, desperate, swore otherwise. Her silence screamed inside her skull. She wanted to demand answers, shake the truth out of him, scream into the commander's face that something was wrong with this mission. But her lips stayed shut, her tongue pressed hard against her teeth. Not yet, not here. The squad moved on, dragging the boy with them. The mission pressed forward, relentless. She followed, her body a machine, her mind a storm. Each step was lead, each breath a battle. Because if that boy knew her sister's name, then her silence had buried more than guilt. It had buried truth. And the mission they thought was about enemies and maps might actually be about her. Why did the boy know her sister's name? The question gnawed at her as they pressed deeper into the building. Boots scraped against rubble. Rifle beams flicked across fractured walls, painting fleeting ghosts in the dark. Every corner carried the possibility of fire. Every step, the weight of suspicion. The boy stumbled as Davis guided him forward, wrists bound but movements frantic, his voice spilling rapid words. Too fast, too broken for her to follow. But his eyes found hers again and again, as though she alone could understand. She kept her weapon steady, her breathing tighter than the strap of her vest. Her sister's name echoed in her skull, not like a memory, like a warning. The commander's hands signaled halt. They stacked along a wall, breaths held. Ahead, faint voices murmured, "Enemy." 2, maybe 3. She shifted her grip, sight trained on the shadows. The order came, silent hand motions, breach, clear. The door blew open under a boot and the squad surged. Gunfire cracked, deafening in the narrow space. Smoke curled, stinging the throat. She fired once, twice, a body dropped. Another fled into the dark. Silence fell, heavy and sudden. Her chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Sweat crawled down her back under the armor. Around her, soldiers checked corners, rifles sweeping. And then she saw it. On the floor near the fallen fighter, a patch, torn and dirt-streaked. The same pattern. The same mark she'd seen years ago, on a jacket thrown carelessly over a chair in her sister's room. Her heart stuttered. The boy whispered again, desperate. This time she caught fragments. A name. A place. The words tangled, but the meaning was clear enough to shake her. Her sister hadn't just been a reckless girl on a highway that night. She had been tied to this. To them. "Move," the commander snapped, breaking the moment. They pushed forward again, deeper into the maze of rooms. Every wall felt closer, every sound sharper. The air reeked of powder and fear. Davis fell into step beside her, voice low. What did he say? She hesitated. Her instinct screamed to stay silent, to bury it like she always had. But Davis's eyes searched hers, steady, waiting. He knew her name, she whispered, the words trembling in the air. Who's? My sister. Davis's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. He didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss. He just nodded once, like he already knew there was more to her silence than anyone else had guessed. The squad stopped again, crouching low as the commander scouted the next hall. Davis leaned closer. You think she was connected? She swallowed. Her throat felt raw. I don't know. I never asked the right questions, not before it was too late. A memory flashed, her sister leaning against the hood of a beat-up car, smoke curling from her lips, eyes alive with some secret she never shared. A girl who had wanted more than the small town could give. A girl who found her answers in the wrong places. The shame of her silence crushed her chest again. The things she hadn't said, the warnings she hadn't given. And now, in a war zone, the truth clawed its way back. The commander's voice cut through, sharp. We're close, stay sharp. The squad nodded, tension thickened, breath shallow. They moved, another room cleared, another body checked. The boy dragged along, whispering words that sounded more like prayers. Then the building shook. A blast tore through the back wall, throwing dust and stone into the air. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision fractured with sparks. Voices shouted through the haze. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Ambush. Figures swarmed through smoke and fire, shouting in a language she half recognized. Muzzles flashed, bullets screamed. The squad scattered into cover, returning fire, their shouts drowned in chaos. She crawled behind a shattered pillar, coughing dust, rifle snapping to shoulder. She fired blind, then sighted, dropped one, shifted to another. Her lungs burned. Her ears roared. Through the smoke, she saw the boy pinned against the wall, screaming. Not in fear, in recognition. At one of the attackers, his voice cracked with a name. And the man he called out to froze mid-step. Not an enemy, not a stranger. The man's eyes locked on hers. For a heartbeat, the battlefield vanished. The dust, the bullets, the shouting, all gone. Only the man, the boy, and the unbearable recognition in his stare. Because she had seen those eyes before, in a photograph, in her sister's room. He was part of the group her sister had trusted, the group that had swallowed her whole. Her silence faltered, her breath broke. And in that instant, she realized something far worse. This mission wasn't about eliminating a faceless enemy. It was about erasing a past someone wanted buried. A past she was tied to by blood. How long could she stay silent before it killed them all? The ambush tore the night apart. Bullets whipped through smoke, sparks flaring against stone. The air was a storm of grit and screams. She pressed her body tighter behind the broken pillar, rifle biting into her shoulder, lungs clawing for breath. The boy's cries cut through the chaos, sharp and desperate. He shouted that name again, the man in the smoke, the one with eyes too familiar. She snapped her aim toward him, finger hovering on the trigger. But the man didn't fire. He just stared, frozen, like he was seeing a ghost. Suppressing fire, the commander's voice bellowed. Muzzle flashes stuttered across the room as the squad unleashed controlled bursts. The attackers scattered, ducking for cover. A grenade clattered near the doorway. Down! The blast slammed the world sideways. Her ears screamed, body rattled against stone. Pain seared her arm where shrapnel kissed skin. She gritted her teeth, forcing breath back into her lungs. Around her, soldiers groaned, one clutching a leg slick with blood. "Medic," someone shouted, voice cracking. Davis crawled into view, dirt streaking his face, helmet dented. His eyes found hers through the haze, not panic, focus. "We can't hold this spot." She nodded, throat tight. He dragged the wounded man closer, bandaging fast, hands steady despite the tremor in his jaw. The commander barked orders, trying to force structure into chaos. "Push left flank, clear them out." But she knew left was a trap. She had seen the shadow of more fighters in that direction, waiting. Her chest squeezed. She opened her mouth, closed it. Silence pressed hard against her teeth. "Not again." She shoved forward, grabbing Davis's arm. "Not left, they're waiting." His eyes narrowed. "You're sure?" "Yes." Her voice was hoarse but firm. He didn't question further. He shifted position, shouting over the comms, "Negative left, redirect right, move now." The commander snapped his head toward them, fury flashing. But before he could bark back, another volley of fire ripped from the left doorway, confirming the trap she'd seen. For a beat, silence fell, the kind of silence heavy with realization. The commander's jaw clenched. He didn't thank her. He didn't have to. His next order came sharp, adjusted to the right. The squad surged, rallying behind the new direction. Davis fired in short bursts, covering their advance. She moved beside him, her own rifle singing in controlled rhythm. The wounded man groaned but stayed alive, dragged by two others. Step by step they pushed through. Her body ran on instinct. Cover, fire, move. Breath, sight, squeeze. But her mind was still stuck on that man in the smoke, the one who hadn't fired, who had recognized her, who tied everything to her sister. She couldn't ignore it anymore. Not the fabric, not the boy's whispers, not the way her sister's memory kept bleeding into this mission. Her silence wasn't just shame now, it was danger. The firefight thinned. One last burst of gunfire, a shouted curse, and then stillness. The building groaned under its wounds, dust sifting from the ceiling. The squad regrouped, breaths ragged, faces streaked with sweat and soot. The medic worked fast, pressing gauze, muttering steady words to keep the wounded conscious. The boy sat against the wall, bound hands trembling, eyes wide. He looked at her again, whispering her sister's name like a plea. Davis crouched beside her, voice low so no one else could hear. "You knew something was wrong before anyone else. And that boy, he's looking at you like you're part of this. What aren't you saying?" Her chest ached. She wanted to spill it, to pour out every secret she had buried the night her sister left, the silence she had kept, the guilt she carried. But her tongue felt heavy. "If I tell you," she whispered, "everything changes." Davis's gaze didn't waver. "Then maybe it needs to." A shout broke their quiet. "We've got movement outside." Everyone tensed, weapons rising again. Through the shattered wall, lights flickered in the distance. Trucks, engines, reinforcements closing fast. The commander's voice cut sharp. "We can't stay, we move now." The squad scrambled, gathering gear, dragging the wounded, forcing the boy to his feet. The building became a funnel of boots and shadows, the outside world a blur of danger. She followed, rifle tight against her chest, the weight of her silence crushing down. But at the threshold she hesitated. She turned, one last glance into the smoke-choked room. And there he was again. The man with her sister's eyes, standing half-hidden in the dark, weapon lowered, watching her leave. Their gazes locked, not enemies, not allies, something worse. He didn't fire. Neither did she. Her chest tightened until it hurt. Then she turned and followed her squad into the night. But her silence had just become something else, not survival, not shame. It was a choice. And choices had consequences. The night swallowed them as they staggered out of the ruined compound. Engines hummed somewhere in the dark, too close, too loud. Reinforcements hunting them. Her boots pounded against the dirt, lungs burning as she carried her rifle and the weight of choices she couldn't undo. The squad moved like ghosts through the broken landscape, dragging the wounded, hauling the boy along with sharp commands. She didn't look back, she didn't have to. She knew he was still there, the man with her sister's eyes, watching, waiting. And she hadn't pulled the trigger. The commander's voice snapped through the comms. 2 clicks north, extraction point. His tone was clipped iron, trying to mask exhaustion. Move faster. But the squad was slowing. The wounded bled through bandages, breaths ragged. Every step was a battle of its own. Davis fell in beside her, his breathing rough, his voice low. "Back there, you saw him, didn't you?" Her throat tightened. She focused on the ground ahead, each stride deliberate. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." His words were sharper now, biting through the night. "You hesitated, you should have fired, you didn't." Her grip on the rifle stiffened. The memory burned, his silhouette, the way he had lowered his weapon instead of raising it. She had frozen because something inside her refused to kill him. Because he wasn't just anyone. "Drop it, Davis," she muttered. But he didn't, he never did. "You're carrying something that could get us all killed," he said. "I don't need the details, but I need to know if I can still trust you." His voice wasn't angry now. It was tired, honest. That made it worse. She didn't answer, couldn't. The silence between them said everything. A flare lit the sky behind them, a harsh bloom of red fire. The squad ducked low, weapons snapping up. Engines roared closer, headlights cutting across the horizon. "Contact incoming," someone shouted. The commander hissed, "Off the road. Into cover, move." They scattered into the skeleton of an abandoned village, slipping between shattered walls and doorways. The night became a maze of rubble and shadows. She pressed her back against a cold wall, breathing hard, every nerve wired. Boots crunched in the distance, enemy patrols sweeping in. The boy whimpered, a sound quickly smothered by a soldier's rough hand. His eyes darted to her, wide and pleading, as though he knew she was the only one who might understand. Her chest ached. The squad hunkered low, waiting. Hearts drummed in unison, breaths shallow. One wrong move and they'd be pinned, trapped between collapsing walls. Through the crack in the stone, she saw them, fighters fanning out, weapons raised, scanning. One of them turned his head just enough for her to catch the profile. It wasn't him, not the man she had seen, but it could have been. Her finger twitched against the trigger. Davis crouched beside her, eyes flicking to hers. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The question hung in the air, would you shoot this time? The patrol passed. Shadows stretched, boots faded into the distance. The squad exhaled in ragged unison. The commander gave the signal, and they slipped deeper into the village, silent as wraiths. Minutes stretched like hours until finally the engines grew faint, the night quiet again. They gathered in the husk of a half-collapsed building, catching their breath. The medic worked in silence, checking the wounded. The boy sat apart, hands bound, muttering under his breath in a language she didn't understand except for one word. Her sister's name. It cut her like shrapnel every time. The commander's eyes swept the group, cold and calculating. "We're compromised. They'll be hunting us until we're nothing but ash. We hold position till dawn, then move." Groans of exhaustion rippled through the squad, but no one argued. They were too tired, too broken. Davis dropped beside her, back against the wall. His voice was a whisper meant only for her. "You keep freezing every time that name comes up. The boy, the fighters, that man. Don't tell me it's nothing." She pressed her palms against her knees, head bowed. "You don't understand." "Then help me," he said, quieter now, gentler. "Make me understand." She wanted to. God, she wanted to. The weight of silence had never felt heavier. But what would happen if she told him? That her sister, the one they all thought dead or vanished, might be alive, tangled with the very people they were sent to destroy. That every choice she made was colored by that truth. Would he look at her the same way? Or would he turn, like the commander, like the squad, seeing her as a liability, a threat? Her lips parted, words hovered on the edge. Then a soldier across the room muttered loud enough to carry. She hesitated back there. I saw it. Almost cost us. The air froze. Heads turned, eyes sharpened. The commander's gaze locked on her, heavy as a blade. Her chest seized. She forced her face into steel, meeting their stares. I didn't hesitate, I assessed, and we're alive because of it. The soldier's jaw tightened. He looked away, but the doubt lingered in the air like smoke. The squad shifted, restless, uneasy. Trust had cracked, not shattered, not yet, but cracked. Davis stayed silent beside her, but she felt his eyes on her, searching, waiting. The boy whispered her sister's name again, soft and broken. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she could keep the silence any longer. But she also wasn't sure if speaking would save them or destroy them. Why did no one speak? The silence inside the ruin was worse than the gunfire outside. Soldiers hunched in corners, eyes hollow, listening for threats that hadn't come yet. The wounded groaned in half-sleep, bandages darkening. And she sat there, back rigid against the wall, the boy's whisper still echoing in her ears. Her sister's name. She wanted to scream, to explain, to confess, anything to cut through the silence that made every glance feel like a verdict. Instead, she stayed still. The commander's gaze swept the room, sharp and dissecting. His voice cut low. We move at first light. If anyone slows us down, they're left behind. Clear. Nods, mutters, but the air was brittle, trust fractured. Later, when the squad drifted into uneasy rest, Davis shifted closer. His voice was a rough whisper. They're circling you. You feel it, right? She nodded barely. You can't keep them in the dark forever, he said. The silence, it'll get heavier. Then it'll break, and when it does, it won't be on your terms. Her throat tightened. If I tell them, it could tear us apart. His eyes softened in the dim light. It already is. She turned her head, staring at the cracks in the wall, remembering the night her sister had disappeared. The unanswered calls, the empty room, the silence that had stretched for years, filled only with rumors until now. Until she saw the man who looked like he had pulled her sister into a war that wasn't hers. Davis' hand brushed against hers, brief grounding. Then tell me, start with me. The boy stirred suddenly, eyes catching hers. He murmured again her sister's name, clear this time, almost tender. Her breath hitched. Davis' eyes widened. He had heard it too. What the hell was that? She froze, caught between two worlds, between silence and truth. The commander's shadow moved then, heavy boots crunching across the rubble. He loomed over the boy, staring down with the cold calculation of a man searching for leverage. What did he say? He asked, voice flat. No one answered. She swallowed hard, pulse hammering. Translate, the commander barked. Her lips parted, but the words stuck in her throat, strangled by fear. Fear of exposing her sister, of exposing herself. The commander's gaze cut to her, sharp as steel. You understand him, don't you? Every eye in the room shifted toward her. She forced her face into stone. No. It was a lie, and it was too quick. The commander's eyes narrowed. Suspicion hardened into something colder. Davis stepped in, his tone deceptively casual. Kid, probably just spitting nonsense. Doesn't mean anything. The commander held her stare a moment longer, then turned away, muttering. But the doubt lingered, thick in the air. When dawn broke, they moved. The world was pale and brittle, the horizon bleeding with first light. The squad trudged in silence, boots crunching on gravel, shadows long behind them. She walked near the boy, his wrists bound, his steps small and uneven. Every now and then he looked up at her, searching for something she couldn't give. Her sister's face flickered in his eyes, the same pleading, the same unspoken question, will you come for me? Her chest ached with every step. Hours passed, the sun climbed. Their water ran low, their strength thinner still. By midday, the radio hissed with static, then a voice broke through, urgent, panicked. Enemy patrol closing, 2 squads, maybe 3. You're boxed in. The commander cursed. His eyes snapped toward her like somehow she was the reason, the weak link. Find cover, defensive positions now. They scattered into the ruins of another village, smaller, emptier. The air hung heavy with heat, silence pierced only by distant engines and shouted commands drawing closer. She pressed into a crumbling doorway, rifle up, sweat stinging her eyes. Every breath felt too loud. The boy huddled near her, whispering again. Not her sister's name this time, but something else, a phrase she remembered from childhood, a lullaby they used to sing. Her eyes blurred. Davis crouched beside her, whisper sharp, "Tell me now what's going on." She shook her head, tears burning but unshed. "I can't." "Then you're choosing silence over us, over me," he said. His words landed like a blow. The engines roared closer. Shadows moved between the ruins. Shouts grew louder. The fight was coming. The commander gave the signal. Gunfire cracked through the village, brutal and immediate. Dust filled the air, bullets tearing walls to shreds. The squad fought like cornered wolves, desperate, relentless. She fired one shot after another until her shoulder ached. The boy screamed, huddled low. Then a scream cut sharper than the rest. One of theirs, a young soldier, barely older than the boy. He collapsed in the dirt, chest blooming red. She froze, horror crashing over her. It wasn't the enemy that killed him. It was the hesitation, the mistrust, the cracks that silence had carved through them all. Because while she held back, still trapped in secrets, someone else had paid the price. The squad dragged the fallen back, blood staining their hands, their eyes filled with fury and grief. And when they looked at her now, she knew. The silence wasn't just hers anymore. It was theirs, and it was killing them. The body lay in the dirt, blood soaking into the dust. No one spoke, not at first, not even the commander. The squad stood around the fallen soldier like ghosts, rifles slack, faces hollow. Their breaths were shallow, ragged. The silence was heavier than the gunfire had been. Her hands trembled on the rifle. She couldn't stop staring at him, the boy he had been, the man he would never get to become. She swallowed against the acid in her throat. Because it was her fault. Not her bullet, not her trigger, but her silence, the hesitation, the cracks it had carved into the squad's trust until it fractured in the heat of fire. Davis crouched beside the body, pressing his hand against the soldier's still chest, then closing the boy's eyes. His movements were slow, deliberate. When he looked up at her, there was no anger, no shouting, just a weary, unspoken truth. This could have been avoided. The commander's voice broke the silence, sharp, cutting. "We move now." No grief, no softness, just orders, always orders. The squad obeyed, dragging their pain along with their gear. They carried the dead soldier on a makeshift stretcher, his weight heavier than any pack. Every step toward the extraction point felt endless. The sun scorched, sweat stung their eyes, exhaustion chewed at their bones. But heavier still was the silence clinging to them all. As dusk fell, they reached the rendezvous ridge. Smoke drifted in the distance, faint columns painting the horizon. The helicopter's thrum was still far away. They dug in for one last night. She sat apart from the others, staring out into the fading light. The boy was beside her, hands bound, his small shoulders shaking as he whispered to himself. The same word over and over, her sister's name. Her chest cracked with every syllable. Davis found her there. He dropped down beside her, his voice low, steady. "I need to hear it, no more circles, no more silence, tell me." Her hands clenched in her lap. She wanted to run, to vanish, to bury it deeper until even she forgot, but she couldn't, not anymore. She turned to him, her voice breaking. "She's alive." The words hit the air like a shot. Davis froze. "Your sister." She nodded, tears hot against her face. I saw him back there, the man with her. I know it. She's with them, with the ones we're fighting. And her voice crumbled. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell anyone because if I did, you'd see me as one of them. You'd never trust me again. Her confession hung between them, raw and bleeding. Davis' jaw tightened. His eyes searched hers not for lies, but for something else, the girl beneath the uniform, the sister who had carried silence like armor. He exhaled slowly. You should have told me. I know. You should have told all of us. Her chest caved inward. I couldn't. I thought silence would protect her, protect me, protect us. And now his voice was softer. She looked at the boy, his wide eyes still fixed on her, then back at Davis. Now I know silence doesn't protect, it kills. For the first time the weight began to shift. Not gone, never gone, but lighter like the edges had cracked. The commander's shadow fell across them. He had been listening. His eyes were knives. You compromised this mission. His voice was flat, cold. You put us all at risk for your family. Her spine stiffened. She met his stare. No, I put myself at risk because I believed she mattered, because she does. And maybe that makes me weak, or maybe it makes me human. The commander's face didn't change, but his silence said enough. When the night grew thick, the enemy came again. Gunfire tore across the ridge, flares blooming overhead, the extraction birds still minutes away. The squad fought with everything they had left, the weight of grief fueling every shot. She fought too, but differently. Not for orders, not for silence, but for the boy, for her sister, for the soldier who would never see another dawn. Bullets screamed past her head. Dust choked her lungs. Still she held the line, refusing to falter. Davis fought beside her back to back. For the first time there was no question in his eyes, only trust. The helicopter roared in, blades whipping the air. The squad dragged the wounded aboard, the dead carried last, the boy lifted into the hold. She climbed in last, chest heaving, rifle heavy in her hands. The bird lifted, rising into the bruised sky. The ground below shrank into shadow. No one spoke, not the commander, not Davis, not her. The silence was heavy, but different now. Not shame, not fear, not hiding. This silence was something else, something earned. She leaned her head back against the metal, eyes closing as the wind tore through the open doors. And in that silence, she found it, the dignity she had been chasing all along. Not in words, not in orders, but in what she had chosen to carry, and what she had chosen to finally let go. The helicopter roared into the night, fatting toward a horizon where answers might never come. And she sat in silence, stronger for it. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.